Welcome back to another episode of Bass Fishing Declassified. Today we're going to take a look at small swim baits. We got a bunch of anglers that are going to provide you with a few tips and tricks that are going to help you catch a few more fish. So let's head to the first angler.
Hey guys, Cortiana here with Bass Fishing Declassified. I'm going to take a few minutes and talk to you about fishing finesse swim baits in Kentucky and Tennessee. It's late October, November, December. It's getting cold. We've gone through the fall transition. The lake's turned over. It's starting to get cold. We're starting to bundle up with our hoodies and our gloves and beanies, and it is a great time to throw finesse swim baits. So what am I talking about when I'm talking about finesse swim baits? I'm talking about a bait less than 4 inches. I'm talking about soft swim baits like this Yum Scott's Bro. This is a 3.5 inch Yum Scott's Bro swim bait with a boot tail. I'm talking about these Yum Pulses that are 3.5 inches. I'm talking about the old Long John Minnow and the Sweet Swimmer by Gene LaRue, 3.5 inches, all the way down to your little bitty Kitex. You know, your little bitty 2.5 inch, 2.8 inch Kitex. These are finesse swim baits, and these are what I'm going to talk about today. So you really only need 2 setups. You only need to know about 2 setups. You may only need one of these, but you only need to be prepared for 2 setups. You're going to need a bait caster setup, and you're going to need a spinning rod setup. That's it. These are the only 2 things that you need if you want to throw a finesse swim bait, okay? So I'm going to start and talk about if you want to throw it on a bait caster. So if you want to throw it on a bait caster, my recommendation, a light, medium, heavy action rod. That's a 3-power rod. This is a 7'3". I love that length. You could go a little shorter, you could go a little longer, but I love having a longer length because typically you're trying to throw these things a long way, and a longer rod is going to help you do that. So 7'3", light, medium, heavy, which is a 3-power. You want a relatively fast gear ratio. 7:3 to 1 works great. This is a Kistler Series 1. And also your line size may need to be determined by the style of jig head that you're using. If you've got a really soft wire hook, then you're gonna want lighter fishing line. If you got a really heavy gauge hook on your jig head, then you can get away with some heavier line, and you're gonna want heavier line. So those are kind of the options, but for the most part, I'm going to recommend somewhere between 10 and 15 pound Seaguard and VisX fluorocarbon. That's going to be what you need. For your spinning rod setup, this is a 7-foot Kistler Chromium. This is a new spinning rod by them this year, and it is fantastic. And I've got it paired on a spinning rod, a Series 1 Kistler spinning rod. This one I've got on 8-pound braid with 8-pound leader. I love throwing it on braid and leader because you don't ever have to worry about twist, and if you want to change your leader size real quick, you can without having to redo the entire spool. But I also love throwing a swim bait on a whole spool of fluorocarbon. I love the way fluorocarbon feels coming through my guides and all that, way better than braid for the most part. So they both have their advantages, and either one is the correct solution for throwing a finesse swim bait. So it's just whatever preference you want. Both of those are really good to use. Now, there are several different style hooks that I really enjoy throwing on finesse swim baits. Got several options in my hand, right? I've got these ball heads with a really light wire hook. I love this style hook. I love having the bait keeper along the shake of the hook, just like this hook has, so you can slide your swim bait on there, wrap it around the hook several times, and you go through way fewer swim baits. So I'm a big fan of this style hook. This is kind of my little secret hook that I haven't been sharing with anybody. If you can find this hook, I highly recommend it. They got a lot of different weight sizes, all the way up to like a 1/2 ounce head. So a lot of times it's hard to find these little bitty hooks that fit these little bitty baits like this, that have heavy heads on them. So if you want to have a fast rate of fall, additionally, that have that twist lock that keeps that bait on there really good. So if you don't know how to rig one of these, I'll rig one up for you real quick. But you just feed the swim bait on, you worm it through, you size it up, and then once you get to this point, this is the most important part. And it can be confusing if you've never seen it before, because you're like, man, do I just shove it on there? You don't. You want to screw it on there. So you're literally going to take the tail of the bait, wrap it around the shank of the hook, and you're going to twist the bait. And you're just going to keep doing that, and that bait's going to twist right on there, just like you'd expect as it screws on to that bait. Do it all the way until the nose of that bait snugs right up to the jig head, and then there you go, it's on there, and that guy ain't coming off forever. You're gonna the fish is gonna take that and rip the tail off of that way before that's done. So this is a cool little bait. This is a jig head by Boss. No affiliation with them. So I'm giving you my favorite finesse jig head, and I'm not telling anybody that, so I can't believe you just got me to do that. But there you go. That's my favorite head, period, for finesse swim bait. Key thing about this particular head, if you're gonna buy it and you're gonna try it and use it, it has a pretty strong shank hook. So earlier when I was talking about line size and rod selection, I'd really recommend throwing this jig head on a bait caster with like 15-pound fluorocarbon, something you can really crack the whip with it. If you want to throw it on a spinning rod, you don't need a medium light like that rod I showed you earlier. You could go to like a medium heavy, something you can hook, because you're not going to straighten that hook out. And you need to be able to jerk pretty hard to get that hook in that fish. So that's the one thing about that hook you need to know about.
A finesse swim bait is one of the best tools we have as anglers to generate strikes. Regardless of species, a finesse swim bait is one of the best fish catching tools out there. Crappie, perch, walleye, bass, pike, it doesn't matter. Freshwater, saltwater, up north, down south, out west. This is one of the most universally used baits that dominates all over the place. And that's because it's one of the best baits at mimicking the natural forage of most game fish. And that's a minnow. All fish species out there are this size at one point, which makes them a forage opportunity for all of the game fish out there. So therefore, a finesse swim bait is a great bait to use. Now, you can throw this bait pretty much anywhere. It does come down to the rigging that you choose. You can buy exposed jig heads like this. You can buy jig heads that have weed guards. You can rig it in a Texas rig style so that it's completely weedless and fish it through grass beds. Up here in the North Country, some of my favorite things to do are fish it on outside weed lines, to fish it on deep rock piles, to fish it on wind-blown points. Those are all great places to throw a finesse swim bait. The one other thing that I'll add with this is it's a very easy bait to use. There are different things you can do with your retrieves to generate additional strikes, but for the beginners out there, it's literally a cast and wind bait. Throw it out, you can straight retrieve it back to the boat, and you'll get a lot of bites that way. I do recommend imparting a few stop and goes, and at the same time, if you're fishing offshore, so some deeper structure in that 15 to 20 foot range, try giving it a pendulum motion falling, or tight lining it is what they call, where you throw it out, you engage your reel, and you let your bait just pendulum back to the boat. It gives the bait a very natural flow through the water. The bait remains horizontal, and therefore it becomes an easy, slow-moving target for any fish that's either on the bottom and wants to come up and eat it, or suspended up higher in the water column, which a lot of fish do throughout the year. And therefore, that makes this a great bait to catch those fish. The versatility of a finesse swim bait allows the angler to choose the equipment that best fits the circumstances that you're using it in. For me, generally speaking, I'm throwing finesse swim baits on light tackle. I'm throwing it on a 7.3 medium light spinning rod that I've got paired up with a 10-pound Berkley X9 braided main line. And then I'll have a liter of Berkley 100% fluorocarbon of anywhere probably from 6 to 10-pound tests, depending on water clarity. If the water is 4 feet of visibility or more, I'll go with 6-pound tests. If it's, say, 2 feet or less, I'll go with 10-pound, and I'll use 8 in between there. But the key here is choosing the right bait for the circumstances. In most instances, I like to go with a lighter head. So one of my favorites is my signature series Dirty Jigs Matt Stefan guppy head, which I designed around a fat impact swim bait. So in this case, I've got a 3.3 Kitech fat impact. It's one of the best combinations out there. Now keep in mind though, if I want to fish this bait in 25, 30 to 35 feet of water, I may have to go with a significantly heavier head and lighter line to keep my bait down. If I'm fishing it, say, around grass or weed, I may end up going to a Texas rigged small swim bait. It's something that you can do, but you gotta fit the circumstances and the conditions that you're fishing to make sure that you can get the most out of your finesse swim baits.
Really quick, if you're enjoying the detailed instruction in this video, then head to our website, fishthemoment.com, and check out our virtual seminars page. Here you'll find seminar recordings from past seminars we've done on a variety of bass fishing topics, from seasonal bass movement, electronics, offshore bass fishing, and how weather affects bass. These are 3-hour seminars with extremely detailed graphics and instruction that we spend hours putting together so that they're extremely clear and impactful. If you want to take your fishing to the next level and enjoy the content on this channel, definitely check out our virtual seminars because I know you'll love the content. Check them out at fishthemoment.com.
Hi everybody, and welcome back to another edition of Bass Fishing Declassified. Today we're going to be talking about fishing small swim baits in the Ozark Lakes during the fall time of the year. And this is one of the greatest ways to catch bass anytime that you have a clear water impoundment, which the Ozark Lakes have a lot of that type of water. It's also a really good technique if you have a lake that has a mixed diversity of bass. Say for example, largemouth, spotted bass, and smallmouth. They work really good under those conditions. If you have just a couple different mixes of them, it can be largemouth spotted bass, it can be largemouth smallmouth, but those combinations paired up with clear water are ideal scenarios for a small swim bait. So the one I'm going to be talking about today is the Megabass Spark Shad. This is a 3-inch swim bait. I've got it on the Megabass Okashira jig head, 1/8 of an ounce. This is a Finesse setup here, and this is perfect for fishing in the Ozark Lakes in the fall. Now, basically, let's talk about the areas that you want to look for first. In the fall time of the year, it's all about targeting suspended fish, and I like to key in on main lake points and secondary points. Now, these points can be a lot of different slope angles. You can catch fish on, on flat gravelly points. You can catch fish on bluffy bank points, or just a chunk rock. It could be a variety of that type of stuff. Normally what I like to do in the fall time of the year is I get my boat out in 25 to 30 foot of water, and I'll start making fan casts on the point ends and sides. And I'm trying to target not only the end of the point, but I'm trying to target maybe 50 to 100 yards down each side of the point. These fish will relate to that point in those particular depth zones. Now, in the fall time of the year, the depth that the fish are going to be is dependent upon your water clarity. Most of the Ozark Lakes, we have anywhere between 4 to 8 foot of visibility in the fall time of the year, and we normally have a little bit lower water level. So under these conditions, you're talking about low water, clear water, water temperatures usually somewhere in the 50s, right around 60 degrees. I have found that this puts those bass suspending anywhere between 5 to 15 feet under the surface over anywhere between 15 to 40 foot of water. So I'm targeting that zone. So I'll take the little swim bait, the Spark Shad, with the 1/8 ounce Okashira, pair it up with 6-pound test, Seaguar, and Vizex line on a spinning rod, and I simply count it down into that zone of 5 to 15 feet and fan cast around. Now, if you're an angler that uses live scope out there, you can really specific and pinpoint the depth. But if you don't have live scope, just try to target that 5 to 15 foot zone. It's a real key thing with that. And I'll leave you guys with one final tip on this thing. The key on this particular bait is using a light line. You will notice you'll get a lot more bites when you use 6-pound test line, even over 8-pound test. So 6-pound test line allows you to get a little bit better feel on the bait, allows you to make a little longer cast. It's a little less obtrusive to the bass, and it just adds up to a lot more bites. So anyway, guys, give it a try. The little Finesse swim baits, just experiment with different colors. You're going to find out it catches numbers, it catches quality fish, especially spotted smallmouth bass. It's just a killer technique for the fall time of the year. See y'all next time.
I hope you learned a few tips and tricks that you can apply to your small Finesse swim baits next time you head out to the lake to catch you a few extra fish. Guys, if you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. At the same time, if there's specific topics or techniques that you want us to cover in future episodes, make sure to put that in the comment section. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the next Bass Fishing Declassified episode.